We are going to see the years of progress towards equality in our society take a step backwards.
For so many Australians, their faith and their religion is their culture. You can't separate them.
This is the third iteration of this bill, and it's something that we would prefer to see quashed.
This is a very important bill, and I stand by it 100%.
It started in the aftermath of the 2017 Marriage Equality Survey as an olive branch to conservative religious groups. Scott Morrison made it a 2019 election promise, even though a government-led review found it wasn't really needed.
When we asked them for the examples and the evidence, we found that it was very, very sparse.
Today, the PM made a last-ditch pitch for his star-crossed religious discrimination bill.
Doesn't matter whether you're Hindu, whether you're Sikh, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Jewish, whether you choose to have no religious faith at all, because we sing Australians all one and free.
That message of unity appearing a little optimistic.
My freedom stops where your religion begins. With this bill, we won't have protection against being called heathens, idolaters, infidels, etc.
There could be situations where the message is sent that it's okay for someone to say that you're an abomination, that this is a punishment from God.
In the wake of the City Point College gender contract scandal, the PM acknowledged the risk to LGBTQI students.
The bill that we're going to be taking through the Parliament will be having an amendment which will deal with that to ensure that the kids cannot be discriminated against on that basis.
But the amended bill wouldn't protect LGBTQI teachers from dismissal or trans students from expulsion.
Those other matters would still be subject to a relatively quick, within 12-month review.
You shouldn't be discriminated against on the basis of your faith, just as you shouldn't be discriminated against on the basis of your gender or your race or your sexuality.
Liberal MP Dave Sharma has been critical of the bill and he joins us now. Dave, did you support the amended bill?
Well, I'll make my position clear when it comes time to vote on the bill. I think there are still discussions happening internally and with my colleagues as well, but I will keep making sure that I fight for communities of faith, but also the LGBTIQ and the gay community more broadly to make sure that their rights are protected in this.
Do you have the numbers to pass the bill? We're hearing that at least one MP abstained from voting.
I don't know, to be honest. And to be honest, I don't know where the Labor Party is on this either and what they'll end up doing. And they're obviously a significant part of this.
The current state of the bill, at least as we can figure out from the reporting of it, seems to centre on this distinction that the bill would make between gay kids and trans kids at school, so that schools would not be allowed to discriminate against gay kids by expelling them or anything like that, but they would with trans kids. Can you explain the basis on which the government's drawing that distinction?
Under existing legislation, under the Sexual Discrimination Act, from amendments that date from 2010, at the moment, schools and other institutions like that have the ability to discriminate against people on the basis of their gender identity, their sexual orientation, their marital status, or even whether they're pregnant or not, students and teachers. That's already in law at the moment. And what we're talking about with this piece of legislation is starting to address at least part of that existing discrimination. I'd like to see it all removed. But there's also a process underway of the Law Reform Commission looking at this and deciding how do we deal with this. So these are legacy issues from 11 years ago.
OK, so I gather from that you don't support the bill in its current form. It sounds like, though, what you're saying is the reason there is this distinction is just that it's a first step and there's another process. But I'm also hearing other members of the government, such as Michaela Cash, the Attorney-General, say that, no, this is a philosophical distinction, that there is actually a reason that you would treat these two categories of student differently.
Well, look, I don't agree with that proposition, and I don't think that would meet community expectations today. I think I would expect that the vast majority of Australians would agree that children certainly, but also teachers, should not be discriminated against on the basis of their sexual orientation or gender identity. We will still preserve a right for schools, and this legislation does this, to positively discriminate for students of their own faith and teachers in certain roles, to recruit, positively discriminate in favour of teachers of their own faith for certain roles. But I don't think they should have the ability beyond that. But look, these are all very live issues right now, and I respect and appreciate that different bodies and different lobby groups and different, religious authorities have different views on this.
Dave, you have 5 sitting days left, 3 months before the election. Help me out with this. Why is your party tying itself in knots over a bill that your own review has said is unnecessary?
Look, I think the short answer to that is it was an election commitment, a commitment we took to the last election. There's a lot of things that I think I'd hoped we would have gotten done in this term of Parliament, which have been waylaid largely because most of Parliament's time has been taken up responding to COVID and the COVID pandemic and all the health and other fiscal and economic responses to that. So I think it's in honour of an election commitment that we're trying to get this done. But you're right, time is very short.
So you made a bad commitment and now you're going to stick to it.
Well, I don't think it was a bad commitment. I mean, I do support the idea that and the notion that just as we protect people against discrimination on the basis of their age or their gender or their disability status, we should protect people against discrimination on the basis of their faith. But we just need to be very careful when we do that we don't allow that to come at the expense of other people's rights.
All right, Dave, we'll leave it there. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me on.